Hi, this is Dr. John Bergduff. In this video, we're going to explore a pictorial representation for multiplication of fractions that will lead us to the standard definition of how to multiply two fractions. This is an area model. I'm going to start by doing a pretty simple multiplication problem and show you how we might interpret it geometrically. Let's say we're looking at 1/2 times 1/3. Let's think of it this way. When you see the multiplication symbol, think of the word of. So I could phrase this multiplication problem as a sentence like this. What is 1/2 of 1/3? And that lends itself very well to drawing a picture. Suppose we start with the 1/3 and we imagine that we buy a pizza and we cut that pizza up into thirds, and I take one of those pieces. That represents 1/3. Now, 1/2 of that would mean take that piece, cut it in half, and look at just that half. What fraction is that? Not clear to see immediately, but if you realize what happens here, when I cut that slice in half, it basically extended one of the lines that I'd already drawn. If I extend the other two lines, I notice that what happens is that I have now divided the pizza up into 6 pieces of the same size, and the area I've chosen is 1/6. That leads me to the conclusion that 1/2 times 1/3 equals 1/6. Now we're looking forward to the formal definition of multiplication of fractions, which, as you know, or as we'll soon remind ourselves, is that you multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. Promising. Let's do another example, though, to dig a little bit deeper. The circle example, or the pizza example, is wonderful. It gets a little bit harder as the fractions get more complicated. Suppose our example was 3/4 times 2/5. I could do something very similar, but the drawing gets harder. Here's an easier way. Again, let's translate this into words. So thinking of the multiplication symbol as meaning the word of, we're really asking, what is 3/4 of 2/5? And I'm going to draw this a little bit differently. This time I'm going to draw a rectangle. And on my rectangle, I'm going to use vertical bars to divide this up into 5 more or less equally sized pieces, trying to make them equal at least. Let me do that a little better. Bear with me a second. I want to make that just a little bit more equal. 1, 2, 3. I like it better. That looks more like 5 more or less equally sized pieces. 2/5 of that would look like this. Pick any two. Now, I didn't have to make those bars vertically, but just for consistency, that's what I'm going to do. 2/5 represent that with vertical bars. Now I need to think about what is 3/4 of that. A way to represent that would be, imagine taking the same rectangle but dividing it into 4 pieces horizontally. And picking 3 of those. The fraction 3/4 would look like that. 3/4 of 2/5 would be exactly where the area I've shaded in blue and the area I've shaded in red would overlap. That would be these areas. And by counting squares, I can see exactly what that fraction is. When I divide the the rectangle vertically and horizontally and count the squares, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in every row and 4 rows. That's 20 rows. So the denominator of my fraction is 20. The number of squares that I'm taking is 6, counting the ones I have in green there. 3/4 times 2/5 is 6/20. Again, the 6 is 3 times 2, the product of the numerators. The 20 is 4 times 5, the product of the denominators. Now we ought to reduce the fraction, but the multiplication looks clear. Reducing the fraction, I notice that the 6 is the same as 2 times 3. The 20 is the same as 2 times 10. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So the fraction will simplify to 3/10. These observations lead us to the standard conclusion of how to multiply two fractions, which we might state like this. Let A, B, C, and D be any integers, but let's say that B is not equal to 0 and D is not equal to 0. And you'll see why in a minute. If I have the fraction A over B, and I want to multiply it by the fraction C over D, notice we don't want to divide by 0, so that's why I put that distinction in there. The product of the two fractions is simply found by multiplying the two numerators and multiplying the two denominators straight across, and then simplifying as needed. So I hope that's a good illustration, actually a very good thing that you can show to students in an elementary school classroom, and they can explore with a number of multiplications using the same type of rectangular drawings. It's very convincing. Thank you very much.